Okay, we'll get started. First of all, want to wish you all a very happy new year. I know it's already been 7 days since the new year started, but as Puja Swami Tejoman ji would say, every day is a new year. Every day is a moment to be cherished. And I'm so happy that we're all together starting the new year. So we'll get started. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, who wants to start with Gita Dhyanam?
ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन कृतितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणी भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुशं ददामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेक्षिणी.
The next set.
नमोऽस्तु ते व्यास विशाल बुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रः येन त्वया भारत तैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमय प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः.
Jayashree, you want to do it?
वसुदेवसुतं देवं तं जजानूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः.
Very good. Thank you so much. So let's do a brief, quick recap where we are with Bhagavad Gita 13th chapter. So we started with really understanding what is the field in which we are operating, which is Kshetra, and who is the knower of this field, that is Kshetrajna. So, but then later we asserted that the knower, that there is only one knower, one Kshetrajna, which is the one knower in all the fields in the universe. After that, we categorized up to the shloka number 7, where we, kind of completed the first phase. We categorized that in this kshetra, again using Sankhya philosophy, we categorized the 24 items that can be considered entirely as a field. So the 13th chapter, started off with this teaching on this principles of that, the Prakriti and the Purusha, or Kshetra and Kshetrajna, that is, or also consciousness or matter. And all this, kind of boils down to us in the simplistic level that we operate as the subject, that is I, we, all of us, and the object, which is the field in which we operate. So the relationship now, which is where the 13th chapter starts, is we need to understand what exactly is this relationship between this subject, I, and the field in which we operate, which is again at the highest level, kshetrajna and the kshetra, the consciousness or the matter. So the whole thing is where 13th chapter is leading to the final phase of really what Bhagavad Gita is coming to, making us understand that, at the end of the day, I am the knower of all fields, not merely in one field. This Atman that is confined in my body is not only confined to my body, but it is that Atman which is uniformly present everywhere. So it is very important for us to very deeply understand what these concepts are really talking about. So in today's lecture, we are actually going to be looking into uh, how do we really understand this relationship. In order to understand this relationship, there is something that needs to happen to all of us. What is that something? What is it that will help me understand this relationship even better? Because for now, whatever I just talked about, all these terms, Purusha, Prakriti, consciousness, matter, Kshetrajna, Kshetra, all these sounds very good on paper. It also sounds very good when I'm listening to it, right? But how do I put this into practice? How do I bring about that clarity in myself in such a way that I can understand these concepts and bring myself beyond this physical body that I think I am? I need to really get out of that notion, get out of that limited sense of who I think I am. I need to really bring about, that change from that finitude, or this aspect of the fact that I'm limited only within this particular time of my life that I'm living here. I need to really shatter that notion. I need to bring about that sense of infinitude in myself. So that is the transition that we really need to look at even in 2026, as we are starting this new year, to bring about that transformation. I need certain things that need to really creep away from this mind of mine, where this mind is the one which is making me think of uh, uh, all this limited things that I think about myself. This is who I am, limited in this physical body. This is who I am in my mental state, where I think, whatever qualities I have, which again, I don't want to uh, go forward without, giving that introduction, is so I need to shatter all those things. And that is why this phase of 13th chapter we are entering into, which is the beautiful 20 values, by really understanding each one of those values, by starting to practice those values of 20, it really not only takes me from the state of personal development. I'm taking this transition of personal development to spiritual development. So when I understand these 20 values, first of all, I start to see how it is of value in my personal journey. And again, the new year has started. Let's see how these values can be the most important driving force for us to take that leap from a personal development to a spiritual development. Okay. So I will quickly the shlokas which we already went through. Verse 1, where Arjuna is really wanting to understand this relation here between the Kshetra and Kshetrajna. And then in the second verse, Krishna starts to explain. And again, as we said earlier, this first verse doesn't really belong in the Mahabharata. It was later introduced by who we think is, um, um, I think, a great Mahatma, which we talked about. And then the verse number 3, where Krishna starts to explain about, you know, uh, to first take this aspect of the fact that I am not this individual limited in this body, which again, Krishna is saying from the aspect of Brahman, he says, know me as a knower of the field, you know, knower of the field, and its knower is the knowledge to be known. Ultimately, today we limit the knowledge we know to material things, right? So whether I need to know more about now ChatGPT or the various avatars of ChatGPT that is coming up, and how each one of these AI tools I feel is going to make me even a more intelligent being. But Krishna is saying, no, ultimately, I'm going to tell you what is that knowledge. Yet the jnanam. So the 20 values that we are going to be doing today are actually called as the jnanam. Okay, jnanam ultimately might mean knowledge, but here it is the values itself is called as jnanam, or it is the boat in which we can actually cross from the samsara in which we are in to that ultimate state which is really which we need to know for ourselves. So again, some of the questions he starts to explain what is, tat kshetram, what is that field, and what are the modifications. So these two things is what is the 24 tattvas that we saw. And then ultimately, who is that jnani? Who actually really understands. So the word jnani is important because jnani is that person who really has the 20 values which we are getting to. So we did all this, and this is the 24 tattvas. And then finally, let's move on to really what I want to go into today. So here we have the 20 values which we just kind of spoke about. Krishna actually concludes his analysis of what is Kshetram, what is Kshetrajna, all that up to the verses number 7. So from here on, this is where I said the jnanam, the phase one of the knowledge. The 20 values are that jnanam or that knowledge, which represents, which is a knowledge, which is the means by which we can reach our goal. So again, today with the 2026 having started, we have, simple goals. Weight loss is always one goal that we look at. The other goal is I want to be a better me, you know. And when we say a better me, we say, okay, I really want to be honest. I want to be more loving. I want to be more accepting of people. I want to make sure I have a good relationship with my family, with my friends, with my community, with my society, all this, right? So that is again one step further from where I am today to reach my goal. So the 20 values is literally a kind of a leap, I would say, where you look at our progress, if we want to do it, can be really proportional to the various qualities which is really is from a sadhaka. I'm now converting myself to who I am today, which is a simple jiva, to now truly a sadhaka, because ultimately it is by being a sadhaka is where I can reach the ultimate goal with lot of devotion and everything. So that aspect of being a sadhaka, where I'm converting myself from a simple person to a sadhaka, by what is it that I need in order to make that leap, is where we are going to be taking that. So again, these 20 values is called as jnanam. And normally, like I said, jnanam means knowledge. And any knowledge, of course, you can call as jnanam. But in this context of philosophy, here jnanam means spiritual knowledge here. So the spiritual knowledge can be obtained. You can think about this jnanam as not only the final goal, but it can also be the means to the final goal. So that is the means is really what is needed for us in order to prepare our mind. And this preparation can happen uh, only when I start to realize that there is something I need to really improve upon myself. For example, if I have, if I always have envy towards somebody, I have an envy towards why is this person moving ahead, or why is this person, always happy, or why is this person, having a bigger house, or whatever, or better family, or anything, then I realize that there is something within myself that I need to change in order to get rid of that envy, right? So, in that sense, you will see that the values which we are going to go through are at a little higher level, but even at that higher level, we can see how from where I am, that can be changed to this one. So, I'm just putting this, anabhyase visham shastram, ajirna bhojanam visham. That is, this knowledge which we will be getting into, it is something that really needs to be assimilated in its true essence. Because any unassimilated, anabhyase visham shastram, if it is not assimilated properly, it is like food, which when it is not digested can even be like poison, right? So similarly, ajirna shastram can be counterproductive, and therefore, one really has to think seriously about these values, this Vedanta friendly values, which we'll be going into, and which ultimately is probably the only values that we need to care about. So, in this very beautiful book, where is that book of mine? Yeah. It's called The Values of Values, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's because my thing is blurred. Um, I bought this book, I think, about maybe 30 or 40 years ago. And it's one of the books that I really admire, and it's so beautiful. It basically talks about the 20 values. It's a book only about the 20 values, there is 100 pages. In 100 pages, he's taken only the 20 values, Swami Dayanandji, and he has explained about it. So here, he calls this the values itself as jnanam, and I thought I just took from the back side of the page, I think, or somewhere in this, just to show you to say that this is what is knowledge, and knowledge is the jnanam. And it basically, Krishna is highlighting a certain attitude of our mind, how we are practicing today. And this attitude needs to be changed. So he says, when the total value of these values are understood, then they really become the highest personal value for everyone. And that is where this 20 values is mentioned: amanitvam, absence of conceit; adhambitvam, absence of pretense; ahimsa. So we'd be going through each one of them very carefully. So while I was doing kind of research on this topic, I came across this beautiful research paper. Actually, it's a research paper that has been written on this 20 values itself, called the Pyramid of Values, which is published by a few authors from UK, actually, in this journal called Interdisciplinary something. And they have actually put this in the form of a pyramid, and you can see how, it starts with initially changing of our behavior in the first part. And from that changing behavior leads to a certain attitude within ourselves. And that attitude leads to the transformation. And from the transformation, we reach the highest level in our own personality, which allows us to be closer to Bhagwan. And that aspect of it is where when Krishna says, I am the knower. So when he says, I'm the knower, it also refers to all of us. We are none other than that Krishna. We are that Kshetrajna. But how will I ever know that I am the Kshetrajna? Today, as I said, we think we are this limited being in this small body trying to accomplish so many things. But I'm actually much, much bigger than who I am. So, to do this kind of a beautiful pyramid, I thought really will help us also how each one of our behavior leads to a certain conduct. That conduct, kind of leads to the attitude, which builds a certain character within ourselves. And that character finally leads to the transformation, and the transformation leads to this metamorphosis. Just like how you have this worm which transforms into a butterfly, that's a metamorphosis, right? So, how can we undergo that metamorphosis being in the same physical body but change completely? And how that takes us ultimate. So, we will actually refer to this diagram from time to time as we're going to the different values.
That was excellent, Sunitha.
Isn't it? This is beautiful. No,
Wonderful. Yeah,
it,
so nice.
yeah,
Mm.
it
Very
shows
nice.
the
Thank you so much.
progress. And it shows the kind of qualities at the one level where we need to have,
Mm.
and we will actually start off first itself with this no conceit and no pride. And then we will move on to each one. As we move on, I'll be putting up a ladder also to show how one leads to another one. Okay?
So you took it from that book, The Pyramid of...
Yes, that's why I've referred to this here. So whenever I take any reference from a particular thing, I
Ah,
put that reference here, and if somebody wants to read the paper, I'll send the paper also. I
you
downloaded that
send it?
paper.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And this
All
book, like
values
I
at
said,
a glance. All values at a glance.
at a glance, exactly,
Wonderful.
exactly. Yeah. The same thing, with Swami Dayanandji's book, this book is so wonderful, which when I read 30 years ago, and if, as I was telling you back in 95, 90, or 96, 97, where in our Novai Balavihar we worked on it. Every day I would actually read this book, try to take one value and teach the sixth and seventh graders. And then the student used to come and present the value in front of the entire Balavihar. And that value, along with some examples from how the student understood. This is a sixth grader, such a small kid. But
Yeah.
at that level, we were teaching these values, and it was so powerful. And later, it was, I remember Pranidhi Varshne in Nova Balavihar. She took it up and she put a whole plate together with some of the 4 or 5 values 1 year. It
Wow.
was so effective. At that, the kid was only sixth or seventh grader. Then, as they moved to the next level, she took the entire 20 values, developed it into a 2 hour play. And today, in fact, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, Jayant Sudha Krishnan is here, and her son is getting married here. And I'm
Oh,
remembering this because they all acted in this, Shiva, I'm sorry,
right,
Siddharth,
right,
and
right. I remember. I remember that play.
yes, so
Mhm.
the whole 20 values put together in the drama. If I don't know
Correct.
if video is still available, but it was so beautiful. About 30 kids or somebody participated in this.
Mm,
All of them in the age group of 12 to 15.
mm,
Uh, so that is why it's so special.
right.
Um, Anyway, this is the shloka which we are getting into. Even though there are 8, 9 values, each value is so powerful. And it will really, even if we take one value, understand it, and start to practice it, you will see how much less stress you have, by just taking that one particular value. So we are going to start actually with the first value, which is amanitvam. Okay. Now, what is amanitvam? Amanitvam, before we understand what amanitvam is, let us understand where this word comes from. Okay? So, the word actually comes from this word manaha. And what is manaha? Manaha means really self respect or self esteem. And but then, when this is taken to an extreme, Okay, so it is an extreme means it's an overestimation of my own self-worth. Okay, so today, the words self-worth is a big thing, actually. Self-worth. Today we tell our children, you got to be worthy of yourself. Self-worth. It's a psychological term, I think. And so the self-worth is actually a good thing, and we'll talk about it. But what is it that leads to an exaggeration or an overestimation? And what are the things that leads to it? If you think about it, it could be, I'll just start with, say, a film, people who are in the movies and everything, right? They put a lot of effort into building their physical body, all the time there is a focus on that aspect. I'm not saying that that is bad, okay? Again, I'm just using that as an example to show how that exaggeration is on the physical body. Or somebody who is, the world's richest people and all that, we all see this. So we have wealth can lead to an overestimation. The physical body, that itself can be an overestimation. Or somebody who's putting a lot of effort even on building muscle and, those kind of things. Again, we are starting this new year with thinking about health, and we might see some magazines, fitness magazines, where people have an over exaggerated. So it could be beauty, it could be health, it could be wealth, it could be power, it could be any of this. So acknowledgement that we have these characteristics or correct assessment is okay. But then when there is a great amount of pride or abhiman, okay, which makes us crave for attention, that is really what manitvam is. Okay. So manitvam is an over exaggerated opinion about oneself. And when we put the prefix a in front of that manitvam, it becomes amanitvam. Okay? So amanitvam is really the absence of any exaggerated opinion about oneself. So that is how we have to understand this particular value called amanitvam. So manitvam is a noun which is an exaggerated self-worshipfulness, Atmani Pujyatva Bhavana, in Sanskrit, which is I have such an extended, exaggerated open about myself. That is manitvam, whereas amanitvam is like, as Puja Swami Chimananda says, it is completely vanitylessness. So having vanity is manitvam, but having no vanity at all, that is having a capacity to not feel vainful, that is amanitvam. So Vimanatvam is again self-conceit, self-glorification, self-admiration. All this is Manatvam. And the opposite, which is Vinayaha, or they say humility, but I don't want to still bring in the word humility because that can sometimes bring a little bit of a different connotation of, oh, should I not be humble all the time? It is one thing to say, I'm being humble, but yet in my mind, I have an exaggerated opinion about myself. Correct? So that is why we will hold humility separately, but keep this word as an exaggerated opening, feeling of, oneself. Is this manitvam or amanitvam? Okay, so amanitvam is a complete absence of any kind of conceit. And again, I want to use particularly the word conceit is the word, or vanity, and that is amanitvam.
How
Okay.
do I have a question? How
Yeah.
do we know? You said exaggerated. How do we know the normal level?
So the thing is, simple answer at this point. Of course, we can complete the whole analysis and come back, but I'll tell you is at any point in time when I get hurt because I have been ignored, okay? Whether it's in a party setting or you're sitting with everyone and somebody praises somebody else, and I think that, oh my, even I have that qualification or even I have that quality, but somebody is not praising me, but somebody praised somebody else. That means I have manitvam. Okay.
Uh, can we say it's jealous?
Uh, Jealous is the outcome of it. Okay. I'm jealous, and that is that's why I use the word envy and jealous. When I'm envious of somebody because I feel that person is superior to me than me, there is a sense of an insecurity within myself. So in this sense, it's not as if I don't have that quality, actually. Okay.
Mm.
For example, I may be cooking a particular dish very well. So I am good that way. But then what happens is when somebody else makes the same dish better than me and gets praised, then I feel bad. Okay. So I do have that quality of doing something, but my mind, I have an exaggerated opinion about that particular quality within myself. So when I have that exaggerated opinion, I get hurt when somebody else is being praised. So that is how I know that I have that manitvam.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah. Now, I want to say that manitvam is not really a harmful quality. In fact, to some extent, it's a good quality in small measures. For example, and this is actually, I should change this word, not awareness. Self-awareness is also one part of it, but self-worth is probably a better word. Okay. Self-worth. So if I have self-worth, it really allows me to have confidence in myself. Okay. I feel that nobody can shake me that. So somebody, if they try to say, oh, oh, I mean, suppose my boss himself comes and says, you're really good for nothing or whatever. I will not feel bad because I know I'm good for something, or I do have this quality. I have to improve upon it. That I know. But at least I am worth. So self-worth is probably a better word. It helps me to have decision making, better relationship, and I don't feel bad immediately. I don't get depressed, you know, and all these are great things. It makes me understand, like I said, strength, weakness, emotions, and it really reduces impulsive actions. It's like, okay, if somebody were to come and say, oh, you're really bad or whatever, I don't go and punch them, or I don't say something immediately. It helps me to understand where I am at this point. It helps me to manage stress, improving overall well-being. So all these are kind of good things if I have a little bit of this sense of self-worth. But manitvam is something else. Manitvam is really something which is um, much more things. So the problem is when that same self-worth gets exaggerated within my mind. Okay. So that same self-respect which I have for myself, when it becomes exaggerated and it becomes a conceit, then what happens? Now that is what we are trying to analyze here. Okay. It
Arvam.
not only, yeah, go ahead, Anand.
Yeah, so no, continue on.
Yeah.
I have a quick
It
question.
basically, it affects my attitude
I
towards
think Anant
myself.
has a question. Anant has a question.
Yeah.
That's
Anand,
fine. I can
he
wait.
said he'll wait. Yeah. He said he'll wait. So it not only, like I said earlier, it affects my attitude towards myself, which is, I may feel bad when somebody doesn't say anything, all that stuff. But more importantly, because here we are studying this value, Again, in its at the highest level, I have to understand this relationship between me and the world. Subject object, kshetra kshetrajna. That is where ultimately I'm going to go to. Okay, so this manitum, it really affects because it puts a demand upon others. Okay, it affects my relation. When I have an exaggerated feeling about myself, then what happens is I start to demand a respect from others. Okay, because I have that exaggerated view about myself. It brings about disturbances in my own mind. Okay, so when one consequence is about that is, for example, if I am interacting with somebody else in my team, I may have a certain, uh, just say as an example, for example, I am right now the Dean of Student Affairs at my university. As a Dean of Student Affairs, then I start to think that, I am the highest position. Nobody can challenge what I'm doing. And somebody comes to my office and says, as a dean, you should have done a better job taking care of the students. How did you allow this to happen? If I have that exaggerated view of who I am and where I am, then what I will do is I'll immediately shut somebody else down and say that you don't know anything. I am this person. How can you talk back? And that leads to so much of disturbances in my mind. I'm not ready to accept another person's view and all this. It really puts a demand from myself to ask for that great respect. So what is the result? There's a lot of friction that starts to build between all of us, right? So in that sense, this can be a huge obstacle for us in moving forward. So I'll just stop here to ask Anant. Anant, you wanted to say some things?
Yeah, Hari Om. Yeah, is the extreme self-esteem, is it the same? Could this be considered as aham bhavana?
At the highest. So aham, you need that simple, even though there is another value which we will come to, which is anahankaraha. Okay. So when we come there, we will talk a little more about the extreme aham bhavana. But let's talk about what is it that creates that extreme aham bhavana. So aham by myself, for example, in a team, if I have to work, I need my identity as Sunitha, okay? Because Sunitha would have contributed something to the team. But if I take Sunitha with her own great skills, has contributed so much to this one, that is this amanitvam, part of it. Okay? This manitvam, the qualities of who I am, exaggerates this feeling of aham to a big aham, is what we want to avoid. But that value will be coming very soon, Anand. So we will again revisit this, that aham bhavana itself.
Thank you.
So, in general, if you look at it, why is it that in this state, in this jnanam, knowledge, we are saying that this manitvam is a big obstacle? So, see, for example, for all of us, we all have accomplished something in our life. We all went to school and we educated ourselves to some extent. Then we served the society. We worked in various organizations. So in many ways, we have accomplished something which naturally the society will admire. So in this, what happens is society will start to give us certain pattams. I say pattam, or even at work or something, the best employee of the year, best employee of the day, best employee of the month. I mean, when you go to McDonald's and all those places, you see that, right? So society will always reward us for all this. And in the society that we live in, in society where aham is very important, right? We try to, for our children also, from the beginning itself, we want to promote that aham to some extent because we want the child to feel confident. But after some time, what happens is it becomes exaggerated, you know, and in every possible thing, I'm always looking for some reward. Anything I do, I say that if I don't get something for this one, I will not really do. So that becomes a huge obstacle because there is, I'm looking for that self admiration all the time. That self admiration itself becomes a kind of a problem. So, what is the problem with that? Why should I not? So, can somebody tell me what is the problem with this self admiration? As I mentioned, we have now cultivated that self admiration in ourselves, in our children and all this.
We stop
Is it
growing,
that?
oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Madhuri.
We stop growing, I think,
We
learning or
stop.
something. Yeah.
Correct. We do stop growing. That is a consequence of it. And yes, Chandra, you
Hari
want
Om.
to? Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Meena.
So, is it that we are not satisfied with what we do? That's why.
That is also there. I mean, we are not satisfied in the sense we are not satisfied enough. We are,
Enough. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, we are wanting more and more and more.
Yes. Yes.
Correct? That's what you're trying to say.
Yes. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hariom, we can't see our own faults and mistakes.
that is true. That is true. That is very true too. We are so much caught up in wanting more and more and more that really it becomes an addiction.
Mhm.
You know, we look at when we say addiction only for things like smoking or alcohol or even addiction towards sweets. All this, we are very aware of. At the physical level, we are very aware what addiction can do. But have you ever thought about this self admiration addiction? And when I call this self admiration addiction, I'm sure you will are very familiar with something which has been introduced in recent times where we have social media, okay? Social media addiction, right? Social media has now become really a compulsive, excessive addiction. Right from the time of, it has of course it has chained us to a phone. It has chained us through a phone. Through a phone, first of all, it has made us addicted to a phone, which made us addicted to, constant texting, losing of our brain, losing our attention, all these things. But it has also, through the use of phone or through the use of all these laptops and other instruments, has made us addicted to many of these platforms now, Facebook, Instagram, all this, which is making us leading to the secondary problems, along with, of course, what Amma was just saying. I'm not able to see my own negatives. I'm supposed to be now, if you look at where our journey is as a physical self, my journey right now is to really cleanse myself completely so I have clarity of mind to understand what my relation between me and the world, and at a higher level to know that I am the Kshetrajna. All this I'm unable to do because I'm being really pulled into this self addiction. Okay. Um, all these things are happening because of just this word of self admiration. Self admiration, which has led from having this exaggerated view about who I am. And this exaggerated view is really perpetuated even more by social media because you may have posted one comment or one um, photograph or something, before you know, it's already become viral and you get more. If it's a good photograph, you get so much amount of, what things coming back to you in such instant that our exaggerated self-admiration has increased so tremendously. So you can imagine this word amanatvam was put in Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita about 1,000, 2,000 years ago. At that time itself, Amanitvam was considered. At that time, there was no social media, nothing. And at that time, this was considered to be a kind of, Manitvam was considered to be a bad quality. But today, we may have to coin a more important word to see how that Manitvam has been exaggerated even thousandfold or much more, and how much careful we have to be with this quality here. So the
How
problem,
is this connected
yeah,
to self-admiration?
it
No,
is
social media. I'm connecting to the social media. How does it the previous thing which you were saying, the social media, you become addictive, but how is it going to increase your self-esteem?
self-admiration, because slowly and slowly, the simple example is the same social media which increased my self-admiration will in one shot somebody put some comment out there saying that this is the worst photo of my life that I've ever seen. You can imagine that person, they don't even have to use such a strong thing. They may have said that this photo is good. People say, how come they said good? It is not, it is so good. Or even simple as that can immediately cause depression. And we are seeing that, we are seeing how students are affected by all this constantly. That is why, you know very well, Geeta, in US, starting from kindergarten or daycare and all that, you're not allowed to use even a single negative word. You can't tell a child you're not eating very well. You have to say it differently. Oh, you ate this so well. Why didn't you like this? Oh, you have to constantly watch what you're saying, how you're saying, everything. This has changed the way we are interacting with people, because you just don't feel you cannot hurt somebody. All that thing comes about, right?
Okay.
So, so again, where is this leading to, the self-admiration? As Amma put very well, it really is that whole addiction is leading to the fact that we are losing our power of thinking. Okay. Of course, I don't want to go on a different tangent, but this chat GPT, all that, now we are losing a sense of thinking. This one also, we are losing our way of discrimination. We are always so excited about only blowing our own trumpet and everything and being the center of attention, that the focus of knowing what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are, that discriminative power is being robbed completely, because I'm focused on only becoming famous or wanting a name, etc. So that self glorification or self admiration leads to all these things. And then what happens when I lose that discriminative power? So you see, it is a step by step fall here. When I lose my discriminative power, not only do I not know my strengths and weaknesses, but it makes me forget my most important facts of life. And what are those important facts? The fact is that I'm here with a certain goal. Even simple thing is, with even simple resolutions like, losing weight or becoming an improvement, better part of myself, all that also changes. you know I'm working hard to lose my weight, but somebody puts on social media saying that, in spite of doing so much, how come you've not lost your weight or whatever? Then I give up doing that, thinking that, so what, there is no need for me to do this anymore, that kind of thing. So this is at the level of the physical body, but at a higher level, I really forget what my role is as a jiva for taking this physical body and coming into this world, right? So what do? We take full, this is the second important thing which we are saying, which is we start to forget the discriminative power. One of the things that happens is at the higher level too, we take full credit for everything that is happening around us. For example, when I say that, I have the skill of being a scientist or whatever, and then I say, I'm the greatest scientist, I take full credit for the whole thing. I worked hard, and that is how I did it. I completely forget that the society, my parents, my teachers, the bus driver who took me to my university, the people who fed me in the canteen, all of them is why I would be who I am, but I completely forget. And at the highest level, it is that Bhagavan who has come in the form of so many people that has helped me in doing and being who I am, right? So all this is completely forgotten when I start to have that great self-admiration for who I am, the kind of qualities I have. So I forget completely all this. And what does it do? It really prevents me from having that great devotion to that Lord. You know, I completely forget that ultimately it is because of Him that, this entire world functions, and the world functioning that way, I'm just an instrument. And so that is another major part of it, which you see is the fall in the discriminative power, the fall in how the discriminative power is lost. And by that loss, I completely forget what my goal is. Any other thought here? So the third problem about this self-admiration is then I start to lose my relationship with people because I feel I'm great. I don't need anybody around me. So I claim, I am the greatest. I totally forget that there are people who are always, who can be greater than me. I just don't, I have lost that ability because of my own self-conceit. I'm kind of, I'm in a trance, I'm in a delusion. I'm always, so you see how today's world, I mean, how social media and everything can take you to the point that I forget that there is always somebody who can be greater than me and I can admire them and I can this. So it spoils relationships, it spoils my own this. So, and that is why, our scriptures have put this thing as the first thing I need to develop is really amanitvam, which basically means, absolutely the loss of complete self-admiration for myself, and which can mean, humility. This is why I wanted to bring that word of humility, which is humility is vinayaha in Sanskrit. And in our ancient in stories itself, like when you look at even one of the greatest poets like Kalidasa, and I'm sure Geeta, you and Meena and all of who are more familiar with the Tamil language can really relate it to Tirukkurals, I really
Yes.
actually I wanted to yeah, go ahead, Meena.
Yeah, exactly. What you said. Yeah, we can relate it to Tirupur. Yes.
Yeah, Tirukkural. I'm thinking Tirukkural, there is quite a few. I'll probably look up for next time. Or if you look up, Meena, that'll be great if you can bring one or two Tirukkurals out here to say that the very first quality I really have to work upon is this amanatvam, you know, to develop the humility. Kalidasa, who was a great poet, he would actually, in his very first verse, before he starts any of the greatest kavyas which is written, Shakuntala or anything, he would always say, what kind of a person I am trying to write about all this. I I don't even, what I know is so little amount of Sanskrit. With that little bit of Sanskrit, I'm trying to release this one. And he would also use the words like, I am Mandaha. Mandaha, which is, saying that I'm not good for nothing or whatever, I am
Blank,
that kind of person. Yeah, go ahead.
blank mind.
Yeah,
Blank mind.
yeah. So I'm that kind of person, and that is how, by bringing that level to that blankness or getting to that level of absolutely no uh, opinion about ourselves, such a person, has written such great kavyas, which even today has, withstood the test of time, from which we can learn so many different things, right? So that is why this value of amanitvam is such an important one. I wanted to spend this little time on this because a lot of us can relate to these kind of values. As we go up that pyramid, you will see that the top ones, we will just, yeah, that sounds great because, but these things we can relate to, this amanitvam. So anything to, before we come to the next value of adhambitvam, which I think will require, already it is, I think, 8 o'clock, at least my time, 1 hour is over. Yeah. So does it make sense on why we need to practice this self absence of self admiration, or so small amount as self worth is important, but an exaggerated view of it, we have to find ways in how we can avoid it becoming um,
So,
manitva.
how would we, how would we correct ourselves, or how would you
Right.
understand? By
Correct.
being aware of it, we should be aware of being manitum to avoid
Yes,
manitum.
exactly. First, we have to be aware of it. We have to keep on. I think it doesn't come easily, right? So I have to constantly think about this value, like even this whole week, correct? Why don't we take it, reflect upon it, maybe even kind of reflect upon it. We can have a reflection journal, maybe write on it and say that, okay, what am I good at? I think we should start with a positive thing. What is it that I'm good at? And if I write what are the skills that I'm good at, and I take one value, for the sake of simplicity and for the sake of neutrality, let us take cooking, if I'm really good at making gulab jamun, okay, and I say that I'm good at, now, can I reflect back on all the times when I made the gulab jamun and somebody pointed out something about it which hurt my feelings or whatever? Again, this is a reflection journal, right? So I say that, okay, I'm good at it, but I understand now there may be people better than me.
Or
Okay.
should we do it with the current situation? If I feel, oh, I am good at it, I myself should realize that I should not feel proud about it. Is
Correct.
that a better way to look?
Yeah, I don't want to bring the word proud yet, because the second value is about excessive pride. Okay, that is the second value. So I want to bring in the word conceit or vanity, or conceit is a better word, conceit or admiration about myself, because I do have something in me. Okay, that is true. And I should feel good about it. But I should not have an exaggerated view of what little I have. And that is why Kalidasa's example is so good. He has created such great kavyas, yet he knows that that is only one level. Now, his one level is a million times higher than where I am, you know. But anyway, that is.
So one side
Hariom,
you're saying,
Suresh,
one way
Geeta,
you're
Geeta,
saying,
see who has joined.
I know,
Suresh, remember?
Suresh Remri, right? Mhm.
Suresh is in
Uh,
India.
Oh, he's in
Yeah,
India.
I
Oh,
joined about 10 minutes after your session started. 7:10, I got into the house.
Oh, okay.
mhm. No, at one, as I have
Yeah.
at
Go
one
ahead, Geeta.
at one time you're saying we have to feel proud of what we did. For example, gulab jamun. I make gulab jamun nicely. I feel proud about what I made, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're saying don't use the word proud. Okay. I feel satisfied that I did a good job with gulab jamun.
Correct.
That doesn't come under amanitvam, right?
That's why I said a little bit that does come under manitvam, because a little bit of manitvam is good because I feel good that I know a skill, I've practiced it and everything. But having the same thing, if I have an exaggerated view of the fact that I'm an expert in making gulab jamuns,
And I am the best in making.
I'm the best, I'm the
Okay.
best. That is
Okay.
where the problem comes.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can join here. A while
Please.
ago, Geeta, the sign is maybe if somebody criticizes and if you get upset,
Correct.
that is a sign that you are
Okay.
beyond the limit.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. So,
I am not even comparing with somebody else. For myself, I make the gulab jamun, it comes out good, and I feel good about it. But amanitvam is one step above that you're saying. I should not think, oh, nobody else can do just like what I did. That
correct,
is
correct.
amanitvam, maybe.
That is Amanitvam. Because if you feel that way, what Suresh said, which is true, I will feel hurt at some point because I will feel that, I'm not good enough or whatever. Those feelings come out. It's a very powerful value, actually, if you think about it. But that is where it starts. So that is the basic rung of Amanitvam. We have to get to such a level where whatever I'm doing, I I do not get affected by it at all. That is where this point of when I realized that whatever skill, even to make this gulab jamun, there were so many people who were responsible for me becoming good at making gulab jamun. My mother taught me this. I had the right ingredients. Patel brothers did not contaminate it. All those things, anything can be the things, right? So, acknowledgement of the fact that I'm actually, I have the skill because of so many people itself. So, that's positive. Anything else from anyone? But acknowledgement, reflection of this value for the whole day. In fact, if I understand this really well, I can watch myself the whole day when this was challenged. This aspect was challenged. Like, suppose I say I'm a great driver of this car and I'm driving, and somebody, comes in front of me, I get really upset. You know, for whatever reason the guy in front came, that is true. But, you know, so think about all those ways in which my amanitvam was challenged this week. Would be a good reflection.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll stop here. The
Yeah,
first two,
one quick question, Sunitha. This link, is it the same thing that works every
every
week or
week.
do you send a new one?
No, no, no. The same link works every week.
Okay.
Okay, so I will stop here and we will, I'll stop the